Okay. Am I live? I am live. Hello, people. Give me 1 second before I start to see if I could find the chatty box. Okay, I found the chatty box. Good. Just in case anybody does join, I am on YouTube and not on my group. So I am going to I guess begin. I'm not going to begin with the Serenity Prayer deal because, for one, I don't know it. For two, God is there, and I'm trying to figure out how to apply that higher power specifically to myself. I'm actually in the middle of the agnostic chapter in the AA book, and I am not quite there as of yet, figuring out what I should use as my higher power. But anyways, I want to start studying this because, like I've said before, earlier today, I have done a good couple of times, but I've gone for the past 7 or 8 years without it. I'm like, fuck it, there's no point. But I haven't been sober in 8 years, so you know, might as well try it, and might as well try to work the program. And if it does work, then hallelujah, I will have something to sing praise about, and I'm sure my family will be super ecstatic and happy. Actually, I saw somebody was watching, so I backed out of the thing because I don't want to think that anybody is actually watching and get super nervous. I just want to do this. I'm not ready for the whole comment section and doing the live thing yet. I feel like I need to get this done. So I'm going to start with the preface of, or preface of the AA book. Mainly, I'm starting with the preface because I had an old college professor as we did book studies. I went and did a few book studies with him. We always went over the preface. It's not really divulging into the book, but it's the beginning, so you might as well read it. You might as well go over it. So it states, this is the fourth edition of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. The first edition appeared in April 1939, and in the following 16 years, more than 300,000 copies went into circulation. I did want to point out that it began in 1939. That was roughly almost 100 years ago, if you want to think about it. I mean, it's about 80 years ago now. And during that time, 300,000 copies went into circulation. Um, that's quite a big deal. And yeah, from what I understand, how quickly they grew. I mean, in 16 years. Because continuing, it says the second edition, published in 1955, reached a total of more than 1,150,500 copies. So, in 16 years, it went from 300,000 to like 4 times that amount, which in my mind is awesome, and it just really shows how much alcohol really does affect families. I know it has affected mine in more ways than I could count. So, continuing, the third edition, which came off press in 1976, so that would be 21 years after 55, um, achieved a circulation of approximately 19,550,000 in all formats. So that's including, I'm assuming now, you have the audio and probably was published, because the next one was like 2000, 2001. It was audio, online, etc., etc., etc. But it went from 300,000 to 1 million to 19 million people. That is tremendous, and I hope this program has worked for many of you. I mean, every time I have gone to a meeting and I see somebody and they're talking about how they've been sober for 2 to 5 to 15 years, of course, I've always had a little bit of jealousy, but also a strong sense of admiration to that person to be able to do it. And AA seems to work. I mean, I guess if you work it, but of course, there's other programs out there like inpatient or outpatient, but generally they always refer you to, because you get done with it, to continue going to a 12-step meeting. And unfortunately, I do not have insurance nor enough money to go get inpatient treatment. But I am, like I said, 12 days sober right now, and I'm doing what I can do to maintain my sobriety. So, continuing. Because this book has become the basic text for our society and has helped such large number of alcoholic men and women to recovery, there exists strong sentiment against any radical changes being made in it. Therefore, the first portion of this volume describing the AA recovery program has been left untouched in the course of revisions made for the second, third, and fourth editions. The section called The Doctor's Opinion has been kept intact, just as it originally was written in 1939 by the late Dr. William D. Silkworth, our society's great medical benefactor. See, this is one thing I wrote down. I do have little notes because I am trying to do a book study, which I'm generally not good at. I'm usually disorganized from here to hell. But I did write this down because I have noticed that they haven't made any radical changes. What they have done is move stories around and remove stories and added stories. I believe it said like 46 stories were added in there. Nope, 30 stories. How many stories? I don't know. There's quite a bit of stories in there. We'll get there in this preface. But since 1939, it hasn't changed, and it continues to work, which is actually very surprising, especially since we write, speak, and our general society is a lot different than it was back in the 40s. So it does kind of surprise me that nothing has changed in the first part. The wording hasn't changed, and it still continues to work, and it still reflects on alcoholics in general. I mean, I guess basically we all feel and we all go through somewhat the same things. Some of us drink a little bit more than others, and some of us don't, but we all have that condition where it's really unmanageable, to say the least. I mean, whether it's something that you've done wrong or you just feel guilt and shame for it. I mean, it's just amazing that alcohol generally has the same trend. It kind of blows my mind personally. It says, continuing, the third paragraph, the second edition added the appendices, the 12 traditions, and the directions for getting in touch with AA. But the chief change was in the section of personal stories, which was expanded to reflect the fellowship's growth. Bill's story, Dr. Bob's nightmare, and one other personal history from the first edition were retained intact. 3 were edited, and one of these were titled New. Versions of 2 stories were written with new titles. 30 completely new stories were added, and the stories section was divided into 3 parts under the same heading that are used in the 4th edition. I do just want to remind you guys, if you are watching, I kind of took it off. I still guess I can receive comments and stuff, but I made it where I cannot see if you're viewing, because I saw one person popped in and it kind of made me a little nervous, and I don't want to start stuttering and stammering. Hopefully I become a little bit more comfortable doing this while noticing people are coming in. It becomes routine for me. But I am mainly doing this because I am not physically able to go to meetings and attend meetings. And the times for online meetings vary. And all the questions and stuff, I'd rather just do what I need to do to keep myself sober. And I think it is reading this book, talking, reaching out, and so that's why I'm doing this. I want to go to a meeting. It's just been very stressful. We've been very busy. We just filed for bankruptcy. We couldn't afford to hire a lawyer, so that took a lot of work, filling out that paperwork. It took about 2 weeks of my time. We just turned it in Monday, and past 2 days I kind of spent with my wife. I wanted to go, but I was exhausted on Monday. Then Tuesday, it was later. I had more stuff to do, more housework. I mean, I guess it's an excuse, but I have been reading this book. I just got this book yesterday, and I have been attending some online groups, but I've been wanting to do this, and I'm assuming if I keep doing this, the quality of the video and everything else will get a little bit better. Anyways, the 4th paragraph. In the 3rd edition, part 1, Pioneers of AA, was left unchanged. 9 of the stories in part 2, They Stopped in Time, were carried over from the 2nd edition. 8 new stories were added in part 3. They lost nearly all 8 stories were retained. 5 new ones were added. I'm kind of wondering why they're switching around the stories. I mean, if you know why they switched around the stories from the first edition, second edition, and third edition, and then what they did remove some and put some in other sections, I would love to hear that information and why they did that. I always like to know exactly why people do certain things and why it wasn't kept exactly the same, because it doesn't even say the stories really that were moved. Yeah, I guess it does. Pioneers of AA was left unchanged. It says that unchanged. 9 of the stories in part 2, they stopped in time, were carried over to the second edition. 8 new stories were added in part 3. They lost nearly all. 8 stories were retained. 5 new ones were added. So it doesn't tell you which ones are missing, and unless you have that second or third edition, you're not really going to know which ones are missing. So if you've read or studied the second, third edition, please just chime in or leave a comment. Go on to the Facebook group. I'll add you and leave a comment as to why, if you have those books. I just ordered the first edition remastered because I can't afford the $1,400 price tag, but this kind of intrigued me, so that's why I got it, just to see the differences and even see if there is really differences from the first few chapters, the first section of the book. Anyways, on to the fifth paragraph. It says, the fourth edition includes the 12 concepts for world service and revises the 3 sections of personal stories as follows. 1 new story has been added to part 1, and 2 that originally appeared in part 3 have been repositioned there. 6 stories have been deleted. 6 of the stories in part 2 have been carried over. 11 new ones have been added and 11 taken out. Part 3 now includes 12 new stories. 8 were removed in addition to the 2 that were transferred to part 1. All changes made over the years in the big book AA members found nickname for this volume have had the same purpose, to represent the current membership of Alcoholics Anonymous more accurately, and thereby to reach more alcoholics. If you have a drinking problem, we hope that you may pause in reading one of the 42 stories. The 42 personal stories and think, yes, that happened to me, or more important, yes, I felt that, or most important, yes, I believe this program can work for me too. I'm not quite entirely sure if this program is going to work for me. That's it for the preface or preface. But I could tell you, not doing this program hasn't been working for me. So, I mean, what do I have to lose? Not my sobriety. I do not have my sobriety to lose because I've been drinking like a madman for years. My name's Dave. I'm an alcoholic. I'm not quite done. I don't want to check in. I want to check in right before I log off because I'm super nervous about how many people are actually watching. It's kind of embarrassing for me, especially knowing that I am broadcasting to the world and not necessarily all of these people are alcoholics or have these issues. They could be coming in and trolling, and I'm fine with that as long as I look at that shit afterwards. I'm not okay with it necessarily right now, but hopefully soon I'll be okay with the people that troll while I'm doing this and be able to ask and answer questions and kind of develop somewhat of a community of fellowship that I cannot physically get to. And when I can, that's going to be great. But I can tell you what, I want to drink quite a bit and quite often. It's been 12 days. I stopped drinking the first the 1st of July. I didn't do anything too stupid this time. I just got super drunk. I drank an 18 pack, and then I got 8 more 16 ounces beers. My wife came home, got another 18 pack. I drank about 3 of those beers. I still have the rest of that 18 pack, so 15 beers. I haven't thrown it away. A few folks from the online AA meeting suggested, of course, I put it down the drain. And like I told them, I'm not quite ready for that yet, because if I do relapse and if I do just sit there and say, screw it, I mean, I could walk into a grocery store, the gas station, pretty much any store, and there's beer. I'd rather not waste that $13 if I could help it if I do relapse. I've been known to sit here, and when I say I'm not going to drink again, and I go on a stint of abstinence per se, I can't say sobriety, I just say abstinence because my mind's not really there. I convinced myself that it's okay for me to drink, that last time wasn't bad. I mean, like, I've had a lot worse drunk episodes than this last time, but on my walk, I decided to take my camera and I started filming stuff. Just random cars. I went in front of the gas station with an open container, had a beer right there while filming people walking up, and that wasn't so bad. But I met a few people along the way. Some people were talking to me about filming the rap stuff, and I'm cool with that. But we exchanged information, got on each other's Facebooks, and later that night, I just kept going on and kept giving him unwanted advice and things that I can do to help fix what he's doing wrong, and kind of made an ass out of myself that way. I mean, it wasn't all that bad, and people generally do that anyhow while they're sober for different people, but that's really not my prerogative. I mean, I'm not into the rap game. I don't record. I don't write. I don't do any of that. So for me to instruct him on what I would like to hear from what he's doing was just kind of rude and uncalled for. I don't know really what to call it. It just it shouldn't have happened. I shouldn't have been so condescending. If I was interested in doing this, I could have just told him no and move on. Also, generally, I don't find myself to be that racist of a person. I mean, I've grown to be a little bit more racist since I guess growing up, and people always saying, "What white boy? Oh man, you smell like a white person." Blah blah blah. All this racial annotations directed towards me, but I never found myself to be racist. But I saw a couple of people sitting in the park, and I made some racist comments, kind of about my own race, saying, "Man, look at that! There's a white person around here. You don't see that too much in this park. What the hell's going on?" And so I also embarrassed myself in that fashion. At the park down the street being drunk. They're like, "What drugs are you on?" I'm like, "Nothing, I'm just drunk. I've been drinking." I mean, but still embarrassing nonetheless. And while I was sitting there in my stupor of hangover, I started thinking about my mother. She really hasn't been there, and she hasn't been that kind to me throughout my childhood. I mean, she ultimately kicked me out when I was 16. I moved in with my dad when I was 14 because she found some pot in my room. But at 16, I was smoking a cigarette. My stepdad thought it was weed. We got in a physical altercation. They said I'm never welcome back. I've only seen her one time since then. She's never met her grandson, which is 9. But we still communicated. We still talked on the phone or Facebook, whatever. But about 2 or 3 years ago, she stopped taking my phone calls. She stopped even considering my son's birthday, which kind of hurt. So I called the police to do a welfare check and all that stuff. She's all right, but I finally talked to my stepdad. My stepdad basically said it's my drinking, and it's not just my mom, but I've noticed I've lost a few good amount of friends, and a lot of my family doesn't like to talk to me. I consider me being the black sheep. I mean, generally I don't call my family when I'm drunk, and I don't do any particular act too crazy of an action. I mean, there's different reasons why certain parts of my family don't talk to me, like. My dad ended up in the ICU or whatever, and I kind of pleaded to my cousin on Facebook, not realizing Facebook's social constructs at that time. It was back in like 2009 or 2008. I didn't realize the impact it had. I thought it was just like an outlet where you could talk to your family, and I guess it's not. But she hasn't talked to me really since then, and certain family members, they came out and visited, and they brought alcohol into my home while I didn't try to have it. And they made prejudgments, so I kind of distanced myself from those bad relationships. But my mom, my dad, it's affected him definitely. I mean, I was sitting there in my drunken stupor thinking about my son, and hearing stories and knowing people's children who have completely disowned them because of their lifestyle choices and addictions. And I don't want to lose my son. Really, the only family I have is my child and my wife. I don't want to lose them because I cannot stop and I will not stop drinking. I know he's like, I'm okay with it now. Occasionally he got embarrassed, like when our neighbors first moved in. He's like, "Oh, my dad drinks beer," to their little children, but so did their dad. I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal to them, but to my son, it's like a total embarrassment that I do it. And he's 9. I can only imagine when he's like 14 or 15. I don't want to be that guy, and I don't want to die from it. I mean, I'm to the point now, who knows how my liver's doing. I haven't been to the doctor. I don't have health insurance, so I couldn't tell you. But I know I've gained an excess amount of weight, and I don't really do anything. So it's really about time I try to focus on at least attempting sobriety. And even if I fall off the wagon, I mean, from my understanding, you guys in AA will always be there, no matter if I drink or if I do not. But if I am powerless over alcohol and I want to stop drinking, you guys will be here. So to conclude that, I want to thank you guys for joining me, and I'm going to keep this video up there. So if it helps anybody, like I said, this was a little book study of the preface of the AA book, the big book, and I'll probably be doing this again once I get through the whole book. I'm actually, like I said, in the chapter of agnostics right now, which is a good chapter for me because I necessarily don't believe in God as in like a Christian or a Catholic or just like a type of religion deal. So I'm having an issue establishing in the spirituality sense my higher power. Um, I do believe in the universe. I just don't think an entity created me in his image while the universe is just so vast. And with the microbioorganisms, I mean, somebody could have created us in a petri dish or something, and they're our God, scientists in the lab somewhere. But other than that, like I just I don't. It's hard for me to pray to a deity or something like that and consider that as my God. So as I'm doing the study and reading the stuff, because the stories do help in understanding that if I talk it out and if I surround myself with other people that have problems with alcohol, that is the best way to keep me sober and somewhat keep me sane. I'm going to be trying to figure out how I could define my higher power and what my higher power would be. I don't want to just blurt it out one day and just stick with it without being sincere in my pursuits of it. I've also started working on the fourth step. I've always been stuck there. I've never passed that just because it's so fast. I mean, generally shit, what is it called? I'm just going to say people piss me off. A lot of things piss me off. Almost everything pisses me off. So, I mean, the list is long. It's long, long, long. And already I've spent like 4 or 5 days, about an hour and a half to 2 hours a day for 4 or 5 days doing this list, and I'm nowhere near completed. Like, I stopped listing things so I could start writing why they make me angry and what I did and everything else. So I stopped writing all that crap because there's just so much, and I felt like I needed to get past that point because I have never actually gotten past step 4 ever out of all the years I've attempted AA. I mean, I've been drinking since I was about 13. I attended my first AA meeting when I was 16 with my father, and I haven't gone back from the age of like 19, 20 until I went to one meeting in between then, where I just gave up and was crying. I was hungover and I never went back and I continued to drink. I didn't pick up the book. I didn't do anything to try to keep my sobriety. I didn't seek outside help or any help whatsoever, and I felt like I could do it myself. And yet again, I was down at the bottom of the bottle. So I'm trying everything in my power to not drink. And like I said, this is why I'm doing this. I cannot physically make it to a meeting. I mean, I can walk there, but it's about a 7 to 8 mile walk there and back, and I am out of shape. I'm working on it. I'm walking daily. I'm getting it done. I just, I know if I do it one day, I'm not going to be able to do it the next. So I'm trying to slowly build my muscle endurance to the point where I can walk that 6 or 7 miles and not be hurting the next day, where I can go back the next day and keep going back. I really personally want to do this whole 90 meetings in 90 days. I know some people are for it, some people are against it, but in my mind, I do kind of want to be brainwashed. I want to be brainwashed with the shit that seems to work, that keeps people sober. I want to know when I am feeling those times of desperation of me wanting to go get a drink, what to think of, and pretty much having this shit memorized. To me, that's all that brainwashing, going 90 days, 90 stuff is doing. It is washing my brain, giving it a good washing, and understanding, okay, so this happened, but it happens to everybody. I mean, it just it'll make me think that as second nature instead of reaching for that can and being like, man, that's a nice cold beer. So that's why I'm doing this. I hope I could start doing this 90 and 90 relatively soon. So I really don't want to drink anymore. And yeah, it's gotten easier from day 4. It was easy until I found out that crazy stuff. Like I said, we filed for bankruptcy, but my wife somehow shut down the whole credit line to her business. She works for a corporation, and we shut down the whole credit line. Fortunately, she wasn't fired, but when she told me that, that was definitely a trigger. I was triggered, and I wanted to drink, man, so bad. I put the beers in the freezer. I did not drink them. And then the next day following that, she wasn't fired. They didn't threaten her. They felt bad and everything else. But then the next day following that, I listened to the voicemails. My grandmother called me that day that we found out she shut down the credit to the whole corporation. My grandmother called me and let me know my uncle died, and he died June 11th, and she called me up the 6th, so I found out the 7th. And it took 3.5 weeks to tell me that he died. So of course I missed the funeral services and all that good stuff, which affected me, and it really hurt for more than one reason. The death affected me as in sorrow and pain that he's no longer here, and her not telling me affected me in a few other emotions like anger, bewilderment, really. Like, why the hell wouldn't you tell me? Why would you wait so long? It just it surprises me. It surprised me. And then the next one wasn't so important, but it was still a trigger. My wife, girlfriend of 14, going on 15 years, his ex-fiance, ex-boyfriend before we met, he decided to friend request her on Facebook. So it was like back to back to back, three things from the 6th to the like 8th, 6th to the 8th, 6th to the 9th, something like that. Um, Back to back to back, man. It really made me almost want to go over the edge, but I didn't, and it's the 12th now, and it's been 3 or 4 days since all that shit just kind of piled on, and I didn't go grab the bottle. So I give myself a pat on the back. It's been 12 days, and a bunch of hard shit, really shit that I've never heard happening before, like shutting down the whole credit line of a company and potentially losing her job, potentially losing our house, potentially losing the car, potentially losing our livelihood and our safety net of living. I didn't drink, as well as a death in the family and not being told about that death for a considerable amount of time. I think I did very good, and I know 14 or 12 days is not all that long, but I mean, I did not pick up a beer, so I'm proud of myself. Anyways, like I said, my name is Dave. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'm going to keep this up and keep trying. Anyways, see you guys next time. Well, maybe see you guys next time. I don't know how to stop this, so I am going to keep rambling until I figure out how to stop this. How do I stop this? I'll stop it somehow. Do I come here and stop it? How do I stop it? Do I unlive it? Nope, that's not how I stop it. How do I stop this damn thing from recording, man? I could just cut the scene like that. Be like, boom, you can still hear me. But I'm not going to do that. Maybe I should. Maybe I should just fade it out. Goodbye, people.